Hi everyone, Nick Washburn here. So today in this second video in this series, I'm going to run a number of MS Lab scripts to provision the Azure Stack HCI test lab that we've been working on. So it's important that you start at the beginning of the process in order for this to make a lot of sense. So if you haven't, go to my website here and follow along from the top, and also you can watch the first video to get started. Okay, so today, now that we've finished our configuration, we're going to go in and start running the scripts. So I haven't made any really updates or modifications to Microsoft's process, so we're just going to follow the Microsoft's tutorial script today and just step through the process to get those MS Lab scripts run and get our lab created. All right, so let's get started. Before you begin, make sure that your environment is set up so that you don't have any script errors. So one of the things you may need to change is your execution policy, to set your execution policy for PowerShell to unrestricted. So just check on that. And also, depending on which operating system you're using, you may have kind of different struggles or luck running as administrator. So if you're running in Windows 10 or in Windows Server, probably you can just right click and say run as administrator. For Windows 11, I had trouble with that, so I just ended up running a admin PowerShell window and I just run the scripts one by one. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is go into our environment that we've set up. So we've already extracted our MS Labs scripts into our lab folder, and now we're going to follow along with the documentation and just run those one by one. So the first thing we need to do is we need to run number one, which is the prereq script. And let's get that started. We're just going to let it run. And I'm not gonna run this in real time, so we'll just skip to the end of each step. All right, so now that the prereqs are finished, we've got our prerequisites all in place. We're now ready to run step one. So we're ready to run step two, which is going to be to create our parent disks. So in this part of the documentation, you'll see that we're creating the Windows Server parent disks. So we're just going to run the script to create parent disks. And the key thing here is to select our ISO that contains our Windows Server that we chose, with the version of Windows Server we chose. So I chose 2022 eval, got that here. And then we're going to let this part run. So let's skip to the end of this part. All right, so MS Labs has provisioned a domain controller and created an image for us for Windows Server to use in the next steps. So that's awesome. Following along Microsoft's documentation, the next step we need to do is create our Azure Stack HCI parent disk. So MS Labs doesn't have a great inbuilt step for this, so you can see there's a few things you need to do here. You need to grab this function that the documentation points out, this convert Windows image .ps1 function, and drop that into one of the folders as indicated here, and then we're actually going to dig down in and run create parent disk PowerShell script ourselves instead of following one of the other steps. So let's run that, and we can see here that it's asking us to select an ISO, and so we're going to select our Azure Stack HCI ISO at this point. There are a couple other steps we need to just kind of jump through, so we're not going to select any MSUs, we're not going to change any of the defaults here, and now let's just let the script run. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the end of the script. All right, so our Azure Stack HCI image has now been provisioned into a VM, so that one's ready as well. And we can get along to our last step, which is to actually deploy the VMs. So up till this point, it's just been provisioning VHDs, getting those various disks ready. Now it's going to actually take those disks that it created and apply them across the VMs that we specified earlier in our script. So we're going to end up, in my case, I'm going to end up with a domain controller, a management server, and 2 Azure Stack HCI nodes at the end of this step. So let's get this step kicked off. We're going to select our telemetry setting that we want, and then okay, the script has started. So again, I'm going to just skip to the end of this so we can see the completion. Okay, so it finished actually provisioning those VMs. So now I've got a number of VMs in my Hyper-V environment, and that we came to the end. So this is the end of provisioning VMs. So in my next video, I'm going to actually show the process of starting up those VMs and applying updates and doing a few finishing touches to get the environment set up with Windows Admin Center and a number of other things that we want to do before we really get started using our HCI environment. All right, so I hope to see you in the next video.